All right, so let's jump right into this mountain of AI news you've sent us. We've got articles, tweets, forum discussions, you name it. Seems like you're really trying to stay ahead of the curve on all things AI, and honestly, who can blame you? So we're going to break down the biggest stories of January 23rd, starting with two that are really making headlines: DeepSeek's R1 and Bespoke's Stratos 32B.
Both are getting a ton of attention for their reasoning abilities. And I'm not just talking about spitting back facts here. We're talking about actually working through problems like a human would.
Yeah, I've been seeing that all over the forums. Everyone's impressed with how these models seem to actually think. So
Mhm.
is this some kind of breakthrough in AI design? Like, did they crack the code on artificial general intelligence?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. A lot of the chatter online is focusing on the training data, not some fancy new model architecture. It's like, that old saying, garbage in, garbage out, but for AI.
Right, so it's not just about building bigger models, but feeding them the right stuff.
Exactly. And Bespoke is a perfect example of this. They're getting amazing results with Stratos 32B by feeding it these incredibly detailed data sets. They call them reasoning traces.
Reasoning traces. So it's like they're showing the AI not just the answer to a puzzle, but the whole thought process behind solving it.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that Bespoke managed to do this with only 17,000 training examples. Compare that to DeepSeek, who used a whopping 800,000 examples to train R1.
Wow, that's a huge difference. So maybe this explains why we're seeing such impressive efficiency with those smaller versions of models like OpenAI's O1 and O3. Maybe they're using a similar approach.
It's certainly possible. It seems like focusing on high quality, reasoning focused data could be the key to unlocking more efficient AI learning.
Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into DeepSeek's R1 specifically. It's blowing minds with its math skills. We're seeing reports of 92% accuracy on benchmarks. That's even better than Google's Gemini and OpenAI's O1, right?
That's right. It's really impressive in that regard. But from what I've seen, R1 does seem to have a bit of a temperament, you could say.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, it's amazing at tasks with clear-cut answers, math, coding, that sort of thing. But when it comes to anything that requires creativity or a bit of subjective judgment, it seems to struggle.
Yeah, I saw some of those forum threads where it's recommending some pretty bizarre tech stacks for simple app ideas.
Hmm.
Not exactly the creative genius we were hoping for.
Right, and this raises a really interesting question. Are we moving towards a world of AI specialists, each one incredibly good at one specific thing, but maybe lacking in overall flexibility?
Like an AI dream team, each with their own unique superpower.
Exactly.
Food for thought for sure. Now, Google isn't letting DeepSeek steal the show completely. They just launched Gemini 2.0 with this feature they're calling flash thinking, and it's already claiming the top spot in the chatbot arena with a 73.3% math score.
Not quite R1 level, but still very impressive.
What really stands out about this model is its massive context window, a million tokens.
It's a game changer for tasks that require a lot of data. Imagine writing a long article, doing in-depth research, or generating complex code. Gemini 2.0 can handle it all.
Okay, so now we're talking about the future of work implications. What does this mean for writers, researchers, developers?
Well, it's too early to say for sure, but one thing's for certain: AI is becoming more and more capable of handling tasks that were once considered uniquely human.
It's changing the landscape right before our eyes. And speaking of change, we're seeing a lot of activity in the AI tools and integration space. Llama Index, for instance, just released Agent Workflow, a tool for building and managing what they call multi-agent systems.
Think of it like a conductor leading an orchestra, but instead of musicians, each agent is an AI specialized in a particular task.
So it's like coordinating a whole team of AI specialists.
Precisely. It allows developers to create these incredibly complex workflows where different AIs collaborate to achieve a common goal.
That's a powerful concept. And for all you academics out there, AI2 Scholar QA is making a splash.
Imagine going from reading one research paper at a time to instantly analyzing insights across entire libraries.
Now that's something I could use. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute and peek behind the scenes, into those developer Discord servers where the real magic happens.
Well, Unsloth AI is causing quite a stir with their new dynamic 4-bit quantization method.
Which in non-developer terms means they figured out how to make these massive AI models run on less powerful hardware, right?
Exactly. And this is a big deal. It opens up the world of AI to a much wider range of users and applications.
So it's not just about making AI smarter, it's about making it more accessible.
Absolutely.
That's a game changer. But of course, no developer conversation is complete without a little drama. This time it seems like Windsurf's auto memory feature is causing some headaches with Cascade's looping bugs.
Ah, the joys of software development, even in the cutting-edge world of AI.
He just goes to show that things aren't always as smooth and polished as they seem. Now, you mentioned something called Project Stargate in your notes. Is that the one with OpenAI?
That's the one. And they finally released some details, and let me tell you, it's a big one.
Lay it on me.
OpenAI is planning to invest, get this, $500 billion over the next 4 years in AI infrastructure right here in the U.S.
$500 billion.
It's a staggering sum, and some big names like SoftBank and Oracle are already on board.
So what are they planning to do with all that money?
Well, the details are still a bit fuzzy, but it seems like a big chunk of it will go towards building these massive data centers and training even more powerful AI models.
Models that would dwarf even these giants like R1 we're talking about.
It's certainly possible, but it's not just about raw computing power. It seems like OpenAI is also interested in developing new AI hardware and software, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's like a Manhattan Project for AI, a massive coordinated effort to advance the field as quickly as possible.
Good way to put it.
But this is definitely generating some debate, right? About ethics, responsibility, and the potential for too much power being concentrated in the hands of one company.
Those are definitely valid concerns and ones that need to be addressed. As AI becomes more powerful, we need to ensure that its development and deployment benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so we've got models getting smarter, tools becoming more powerful, and a whole lot of money being poured into AI. That's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting. We're literally witnessing a technological revolution unfold in real time.
I like the way you think. All right, let's move on to part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll take a closer look at some of the specific models and tools you're interested in, starting with DeepSeek's R1.
Sounds good to me. So DeepSeek's R1, huh? It really is a fascinating case study. As we were saying, it's making waves with those math and reasoning skills, but it also kind of highlights this whole debate about the future of AI, you know? Are we heading towards a world of these hyper-specialized AI agents?
Yeah, that AI dream team idea, each with their own, like, super specific skill set. So let's break down R1 a bit. What makes it so good at math and reasoning in the first place?
Well, a big part of it comes down to how it was trained. Unlike a lot of those other big language models out there, R1 was actually trained using something called reinforcement learning.
Reinforcement learning. I'm not sure I've heard of that. How's that different from the usual way AI is trained?
Well, you're probably thinking of supervised learning, where you feed the model tons and tons of labeled data like text and images, and the model kind of learns to make predictions based on those labels, right? Like recognizing a cat in a picture, because it's been shown thousands of pictures labeled cat.
Right.
Reinforcement learning is a bit different. It's more like, think of it like training a dog. You give it treats for doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So the AI learns by actually interacting with an environment and getting rewards for taking certain actions.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So instead of being spoon-fed labeled data, R1 is kind of learning by doing and getting feedback along the way.
Exactly. And in R1's case, that environment was a bunch of really complex math problems. And the reward, well, that was solving them correctly.
And this approach seems to have worked pretty well, given R1's crazy benchmark scores.
It definitely has. Through this whole trial and error process, R1 has developed this really deep understanding of mathematical concepts and, more importantly, how to actually apply them.
But it's not a perfect AI, right? We
Right.
talked about how it struggles with those more creative and subjective tasks.
Right, it kind of thrives in those areas where there are clear-cut answers, like math or coding. But when things get a little more ambiguous, a little more open-ended, that's when it starts to falter.
So it's kind of like a brilliant mathematician who can't write a poem to save their life.
A little bit like that, yeah.
It's interesting, this whole specialization versus generalization debate. Are we going to end up with all these AI specialists, like a math whiz, a coding guru, a creative writing master, each excelling in their own little lane?
It's a real possibility. And for certain tasks, you know, like scientific research, complex engineering projects, having those hyper-specialized AI agents could be incredibly valuable.
But what about all those things that require a more holistic understanding of the world? You know, like writing a novel, composing a symphony, designing a truly innovative product.
Those are still a big challenge for AI. They require creativity, intuition, even emotional intelligence. Things that we haven't quite figured out how to replicate in machines yet.
So is there a way to bridge that gap? Can we create AI that's both specialized and generalized, that can think like a mathematician and feel like an artist?
Well, that's the million-dollar question in AI research right now. There are a lot of very bright people working on it, but it's a complex challenge. It'll probably take many years, maybe even decades, to fully crack that code.
Fingers crossed we get there eventually.
Yeah.
Speaking of bridging gaps, you mentioned something called SkyP1 earlier, which seems to be doing some really interesting things in the realm of efficient AI training.
Oh yeah, SkyT1 is a really novel approach to training these AI models for reasoning tasks. It uses this technique called distillation, where a smaller, more efficient model is trained to mimic the behavior of a much larger, more complex model.
It's like an apprentice learning from a master,
Right.
absorbing all their knowledge and skills.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is that SkyT1 achieves some pretty impressive reasoning abilities, but with significantly fewer training examples than traditional methods.
Like bespoke Stratos 32B, which only had those 17,000 examples.
Exactly. It seems like focusing on that high-quality, reasoning-focused data just leads to much more efficient learning.
So less is more, in a way.
In this case, it really seems that way.
That's exciting because it means you don't necessarily need access to these massive data sets to develop really powerful AI.
Right, and that has huge implications for the accessibility of AI as a whole. Smaller organizations, even individuals, could potentially get involved without needing the resources of, a Google or an OpenAI.
That's huge. Now let's talk about NVIDIA's Eagle 2 for a minute. This seems to be more on the hardware side of the AI equation.
It is. Eagle 2 is a brand new AI chip specifically designed to handle those massive large language models.
And when we say large, we mean really large, right?
Exactly. Models with billions, even trillions of parameters.
The kind of models that would bring a regular computer to its knees.
You got it.
So Eagle 2 is like a supercharged engine built for the AI era.
Perfect analogy. It's packed with processing power and memory, allowing it to handle those massive models with incredible speed and efficiency.
But it's not just brute force, right? There's some clever design involved, too.
Oh, absolutely. Eagle 2 uses this specialized architecture and software that's specifically optimized for those AI workloads.
So it's a combination of raw power and intelligent design.
Exactly. And that's crucial because as these AI models get more and more complex, we need the hardware that can keep up.
Otherwise, we'll be stuck waiting forever for them to process all that data.
Eagle 2 is a significant step forward in AI hardware, and it's likely to play a major role in enabling that next generation of AI applications.
Okay, so we've got SkyT1 on the training side, making AI more efficient and accessible, and Eagle 2 on the hardware side, providing the muscle to run those increasingly complex models. It's like a 1-2 punch for AI progress.
I like it.
What's next? What other exciting AI developments are on the horizon?
Well, one area that's getting a lot of buzz is multimodal AI. These are models that can understand and interact with the world through multiple senses, like vision, hearing, touch.
Wait, so AI that can see, hear, and feel. Like, for real?
For real. And this has the potential to revolutionize so many things, from robotics and self-driving cars to healthcare and education.
Wow, that sounds incredible.
It is, and it's just one example of the amazing innovations happening in AI right now.
So buckle up, because things are about to get even more interesting.
You can say that again. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit here and talk about AI agents. They're becoming a really hot topic in AI these days because they represent this kind of fundamental shift towards more autonomous and goal-oriented systems.
So instead of just having AI models that perform tasks, these agents can actually figure out how to get things done, like even complex things, all on their own.
That's the idea. We're seeing a ton of research and development in this area, and it's leading to some pretty amazing capabilities.
Like OpenAI's Operator, right? We talked about that a bit earlier.
Exactly. Operator is a perfect example of an AI agent that can actually interact with the real world. In that case, by using a web browser. But there are tons of other examples out there too, like agents that can control robots, manage smart homes, even trade stocks.
It's like we're giving these AI models a set of hands and just letting them loose in the world.
In a way, yeah, but it's more than just giving them those physical capabilities. It's about giving them the ability to think, to plan, to make decisions in these complex and constantly changing environments.
That's pretty wild. I mean, it's exciting, but also a little bit unnerving, to be honest.
I get it. It's powerful technology. We need to make sure we're developing it responsibly with the right safeguards in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of agents, what about that IntellAgent thing you mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah. IntellAgent is actually an open source framework. It's for evaluating and comparing all those different conversational AI systems out there, like chatbots.
So it's not an agent itself, but more like a way to test and measure how well different agents perform.
Exactly. It's a crucial tool for researchers and developers. It helps them really understand the strengths and weaknesses of different agent designs and training methods.
Makes sense. So we've got agents that can act in the real world, like Operator, and then we have these frameworks for evaluating them, like IntellAgent. What about actual applications of this technology? Where are we seeing AI agents being used today?
Oh, they're already popping up in various industries: customer service, marketing, finance, healthcare, you name it.
Yeah, all those chatbots that seem to be everywhere these days, they're getting more sophisticated all the time, aren't they?
They are. They're handling more and more complex questions, even solving problems without any human intervention. We're also seeing agents being used to automate tasks in things like data analysis, content creation, even software development.
It's like the rise of the robot workforce, but instead of physical robots, it's all these digital agents working behind the scenes.
You could say that, but it's important to remember that these agents are still tools. They're meant to augment human capabilities, not necessarily replace us entirely.
Right. It's not about humans versus machines, but about humans and machines working together.
Exactly.
So speaking of working together, let's circle back to Project Stargate for a minute. OpenAI's big investment in AI infrastructure.
It's definitely a bold move, to say the least.
$500 billion. It's just mind-boggling.
It really speaks volumes about OpenAI's ambition. Their vision for the future of AI is clearly massive.
So any idea what they're planning to do with all that cash?
Well, the details are still a bit fuzzy, but it sounds like a big chunk of it will go towards building these enormous data centers and training even more powerful AI models than we've seen before.
Models that would make even those giants like R1 look small.
Possibly, yeah. But it's not just about raw computing power. It seems like OpenAI is also really interested in developing new AI hardware and software, pushing the limits of what's possible.
So it's kind of like a Manhattan Project for AI. A huge, coordinated effort to advance the field as quickly as possible.
That's a good analogy.
But of course, this is raising some eyebrows, right? Concerns about ethics, responsibility, the potential for all that power being concentrated in the hands of one company.
Those are valid concerns, absolutely. As AI becomes more powerful, we have to make sure that its development and deployment benefits everyone, not just a select few.
And we need to be having these conversations now, before it's too late.
I couldn't agree more.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the AI news of January 23rd, 2025, one thing is clear. We are living in a time of incredible change and innovation. From those breakthroughs in reasoning to these powerful new agents, from specialized hardware to those massive infrastructure projects, AI is rapidly transforming the world around us.
And it's only going to accelerate from here.
Absolutely. The key is to stay informed, engage in these critical discussions, and work together to shape the future of AI in a way that benefits everyone.
Well said.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and stay tuned for the next deep dive.